welcome one and all. It's time for yet another spicy, red-hot, sizzling Kings of War battle report, this time under Clash of Kings 2022 conditions. That's right, the book is here, the rules are here, the tweaks are here, the nerfs and the buffs, and it's time to unleash them on the battlefield. Abyssal Dwarves versus Twilight kin in a bit of a YouTuber battle, as you can see from the thumbnail. We've got Steve from Death by Dragons, the slightly smaller, slightly less significant YouTube channel when it comes to Kings of War content, but he's trying his best, bless him. So, let's dive in, shall we? So, as I remove the thumbnail, you can see the battlefield, and I've got the army lists right here. So these army lists were hastily thrown together, and because of that there is at least one mistake that I've spotted in there so far, because there is no easy army updated, there's no app, no electronic way to put together your list with all the new Clash of Kings 2022 changes. So there are one or two blunders probably in here. I've only spotted the one so far, but we'll see if there are more. I'm sure eagle-eyed viewers will spot some. So we are playing the loot scenario, 2,300 points. You can see the loot tokens along the centre of the table there, for anyone who's not familiar with that scenario. Tokens down the middle. You can pick them up, and whoever's got the most at the end wins. And that is that. So, the terrain on this table. This is actually played at Mantic HQ, so the table was already set out for us. We did move a little bit of terrain, because there wasn't a base for the forest. So I think we just moved that, and we pushed two of these bits of impassable terrain together. Now my opponent, despite having some very wide hordes, decided to choose the table side where they wouldn't be able to fit through some of this terrain side by side. So locking himself in a little bit there, but it was his decision, and we'll see if that pays out for him. And let's go through the lists, shall we? So I'm going to start with the Twilight kin, or Twiglet kin as they're known. So, on this side, let me just find the right document here. So, what have we got? We've got some knights. So, Twilight kin are interesting because they can take Abyssal stuff, they can take some Night Stalker stuff, and just an interesting mishmash. So, we've got here, these will be, these are they mounted, those warriors there? Yeah, they're riding horses, aren't they? Oh yeah, they've got the green hydra at the back there. It's that gargoyle unit behind them throwing me off there. So there's some gargoyles there, which are just standard gargoyles. In front, there are the crone-bound abyssal horsemen. So I believe the green one has Potion of the Caterpillar, which is this one, and there's another one somewhere else on the battlefield that is equipped differently. And these two are, let's see, these would be Soulbane on Dreadfiend, which is a hero, large cavalry. 6 attacks, speed 8, crushing strength 2, dread, elite, inspiring, nimble, stealthy. Not too shabby. Gargoyles there. Next, in the centre, that was on the right flank as I look at it. In the centre we've got a Shadow Hulk right here, which is a very interesting model, which I believe is a 3D printed model. And then there is this character here in the middle, who I believe is, let's see, that is Lathiel Bleakheart, I think, and that is actually a Bad Squiddo miniature, I believe, there, representing that hero. So, Drain Life 7, Fireball 10, not bad. And then there are some units around here. So we've got this horde is Blade Dancer Neophytes. There are 2 hordes of those. You can't see the other one yet, so there's one of them. And they're an elite infantry horde. They don't have any special rules other than elite. So they hit on 3s with elite, pretty good, but not much crushing strength, and you'll see whether that would be useful against my army in a minute when you see how much defense 6 I've brought. There are regular Blade Dancers, there are 2 troops back here, and a regiment of Blade Dancers. So these ones have elite as well. They also have Thunderous Charge, Wild Charge, and Enraged. and I can't remember what that does, but I'm sure it's something interesting. And I thought I'd get a close-up of this model because, look at it, pretty cool, isn't it? And there's also a hero hiding in there as well. Who is that? That would be Lees the Soulless. Would that be? I assume it is, because it's a little bit of a fighty hero with 7 attacks, hits on 3s, crushing strength 1, elite, lots of elite here, a bit of rallying, a bit of dread, so interesting. And then over on the other flank, over on my left flank as I'm looking at it, we have the other horde of Blade Dancer Neophytes, and we have the other Abyssal Horsemen. These ones have the Mead of Madness. So, onto my forces. What have I got lining up opposite? So against that flank, I've just got one horde of Lesser Obsidian Golems. So you can tell I'm not putting too much effort into this flank. I've just put a really tough, hard-to-shift unit there. So if the enemy actually want to claim the flank, they will have to put some resources into it, but I'm not putting that much. It's just one horde. Most of my stuff is in the middle, as you'll see. So, I've got 2 Immortal Guard regiments and Infernox with the formation, which, as I can see right here, lowers the defense of the Immortal Guard, but gives them crushing strength 1. They also become elite via the aura from Infernox, and he gets inspiring as well. So I've got lots of inspiring because of the removal of conditional inspiring. So 1, 2, 3 inspiring sources there, and also actually 4 in that small space because Susan is there as well. So I've got all my inspiring cramped together, but I'll go through them all in a moment. So I've also got Abyssal Dwarf half-breeds, and they have Fury now, and I've given them the Potion of the Caterpillar, so they're going to be heading for difficult terrain. I've got Gargoyles that have been upgraded to Susan's Vile Brood, so they get crushing strength and better nerve, which is nice. And Ironcaster with Shroud of the Saint, extra healing. Also got Fireball and Surge. Abyssal Half-Breed Champion, and that is armed with, let me make sure I get the name of this right, it's a new artifact, it's Scythe of the Harvester. So that gives him Rampage D3. What does that do? That means D3 extra attacks against infantry, heavy infantry, cavalry and swarms, I think is the list. So, against the kind of thing I would want him to charge into to help out with, generally, and with the stats of Crushing Strength 2, hitting on 3s, and Vicious, all of those combined, going to be wounding with quite a high percentage of the attacks, so adding D3 attacks to someone like that, pretty potent. And it's not too expensive an upgrade either, only 15 points, so it takes him up to 160, considerably cheaper than Bracky Barker, who would normally be filling in the slot in this list. And we've got Susan right there, of course, and one thing I've accidentally cheated on in this army is I've given Infernox the Dark Lord's Ring, which the first time you take damage in the game gives you regeneration 4+ for 1 turn. So that's actually for individuals only, so Infernox shouldn't be able to take that, so a little bit of cheating there. But it's just one use only, just a 10-point item, so it's not too much cheating, is it? Only a little bit. And we've got the Hellfane right in the middle, and the interesting thing about the Hellfane is that it's got cheaper now, and it's also gained Rampage D6, so against the small stuff it's going to be getting D6 extra attacks, which is very nice because it's just the low number of attacks that really lets it down in combat. So as long as you pick your fights nicely. And I no longer feel the need to put the Inspiring Aura on it either, because all my Inspiring is universal now, so 4 lots of Inspiring, I don't need it on the Hellfane as well, so that makes it even cheaper because you don't want to upgrade it quite so readily as you did before, unless you're taking maybe a heavy infantry army or lots of infantry and you want to give them that aura of Wild Charge. And I think that's everything in this shot. We've got a horde of Grotesques, and they have got Boots of Striding, so they're going towards that wall represented by barrels. So it's really the only thing on the table that would be an issue for example, a unit with the Potion of the Caterpillar. So the Grotesques are here, so they can use their Striding Boots if anyone's parked behind it. And nice cinematic shot to the other side of the table there. It's pretty straightforward. The terrain is going to prevent some manoeuvring from the other side of the table, a little bit from my side, but not too much. And the face of terror there, as I have clearly got quite a horrifying army to behold on the table. Lots of defense 6, and I win the first turn roll off, which I take because I do not want my opponent jumping straight onto these objectives. My army's not very fast, and then he could just start backing away potentially with the tokens, or dropping them onto units behind, and so on. Just all kinds of annoying shenanigans I would rather not deal with, because I don't want to be chasing around the table. I would rather get on them first, just plonk down this big wall of high defense stuff, and not quite so high defense stuff here, since I've taken that formation, and make my opponent come into the middle, where I can start getting some flanks with my surge shenanigans, and other stuff that would like to be in the flank as well. I've got my half-breeds at the back, because even though they've been upgraded with Fury, they still really would rather not get hit first. So they're hanging back. The gargoyles, I'm going to be using them in a bit of a different role in this game because of the upgrade on them that gives them crushing strength. Then I feel like they can actually hit something a bit now. So I would compare their attack to like a war trombone. So what I would like to do, maybe, is if I get into a bit of a war of attrition and there's something left with a few wounds, the gargoyles can actually go in there and deal a few themselves and finish it off now with that crushing strength. So I'm going to try them in that role, but if I see the opportunity to just fly them in front of something important, then I will obviously take that as well. But I'm keeping that in mind for them, slightly different role. And Infernox, you'll notice, isn't perfectly centered between those two units. It's only actually behind one of them, so you can still see between them. But then he won't need to do a billion different pivots if he wants to get through. If they go off in different directions and he wants to get down the middle, he won't have to pivot to get round this unit. So if only this one moves out the way, it's quite manageable for him to go through the gap then. Because even when they're nimble, you don't want to be giving them like 3 or 4 pivots necessary to get to the enemy. So he's only behind this one rather than both of them. So it's just less things I have to move if I wanted to get him through. And I've thrown everything forward. Susan has gone up behind this impassable terrain because nothing can see her in that position. So she's perfectly safe. And if anyone starts advancing, she's going to be there to help out with flank charges. And what I want to use her for is to either help out in a combat to kill something, or if it's something that has, for instance, Thunderous Charge, then she can go into it, take away their Thunderous Charge while I'm killing other stuff. And that way they're much less of a threat, especially to my big Defense 6 units, like these two. And in the opposing army, there isn't a lot of crushing strength. There's a little bit here and there, there's a bit of Thunderous Charge, there isn't Bane Chant, and my Defense 6 stuff is in pretty good shape against most of it. There are some exceptions. Shadow Hulk's a bit spicy. How much crushing strength does a Shadow Hulk have? Let's have a look. I think it's 3. Crushing strength 3. Yes. So that's definitely enough to chew through some decent armour. So, moving on, because there's not much for me to do in this turn. I did surge the golems up a bit further as well there, because they weren't going to give up a flank to anybody. They could get charged in the front by a few things over here, I think, possibly, but I'm not bothered about that at all, because then it'd be just flank central from everything around here. So, as Susan, turn 1 for the Twilight Kin, and what is the plan here? So, moving up the Horsemen and the horde of Blade Dancer, was it Neophytes? I think that's right. Yep, there we go. So, they're moving up towards this loot token. They're not in any rush to get charged though. There's a theoretical surge charge I could do here, but I don't think the Ironcaster can actually get that close to do it at this point, because he's on the other side of the table. So, gargoyles at the front. The two... what are they actually called again? So, the two Soulbane on Dreadfiends right behind the gargoyles, so I can't really attack them with much. And then the horsemen behind them. So when I see this, my thought is, I'm kind of limited in the juicy stuff I can attack, and that's a really effective delivery system for them. Susan can only attack one thing. The golems could potentially move up and try to get something in the flank, maybe, but I don't think they've got a perfect angle. I'm not sure if you can see it from here. We'll see better from a different shot. But I don't think they can just go up straight past the gargoyles quite easily and then turn and surge into something else. It's not that straightforward. And what I'm going to plan, as this move was taking place, what was going through my head was, okay, Susan, charge the knights, take away their thunderous charge, and then I could kill the gargoyles. If I do that with a double charge here, then it means, as long as I don't foolishly overrun one of the two units, then I can leave them perfectly side by side, so they're not going to get flanked by anything. So, at worst, I would maybe lose one of these units then. But at that point, I don't think they're as much of a threat once I start killing one of these things, preferably this. I don't think those two are a threat to my big tough units here. So obviously the grotesques are a little bit more vulnerable with the lower defense, but the golems, I don't think they would go down to two of these characters. So if I can try and get rid of them, make a start with Susan, and then finish them off next turn, we'll see. And here, the Twigletkin have just advanced up behind the wall with the neophytes. It's a bit compact and congested here because of the terrain layout, which again my opponent selected tableside there. Drain Life or Fireball, can't remember which one it was. May well have been Fireball, was cast on the Immortal Guard, who took 4 wounds. And that's how it looks at the end of that turn. So still not too much action. And turn 2 for the Abyssal Dwarves. So, gargoyles are dead, so I go ahead with this plan. Susan in there, these two forward. So worst case scenario is that they're able to get a triple charge in on one of these two units. I'm not sure whether it's going to be possible at this point, because there are angles to deal with, and when you're doing a triple charge, depending on the order in which you do them, when they're this close together, there may be a chance that they can't actually physically get in there with a single pivot. So we'll see. So Susan does 4 damage to them. Gargoyles are obviously dead. And this guy, I think, took damage from the Hellfane's pistol attack. The Hellfane that hasn't gone all the way forward yet. Over here, the golems have turned a bit, so they're inviting charges from those two units, which I would be cool with at this stage. And in the middle, everything's just moved up, and the Immortal Guard have got some of their wounds back. I can't remember if that was heal or regeneration that did that. The Abyssal half-breed champion is staying slightly behind them, so he's not going to get charged by any big units. And obviously I have to go up into charge range because all my units are slower than the enemy. Ironcaster out there, half-breeds hanging out in the terrain with their caterpillar potions so they can charge off. And the Hellfane staying back and shot at that guy. So the Hellfane has stayed out of range of the Shadow Hulk, which is one of the few things that can actually be a threat to it. So we'll see what the enemy are going to do, because they're very congested. They don't have that much to attack here. The Immortal Guard are more expendable than most things in the army. So let's find out. Look at that lovely cinematic shot of the Hellfane overlooking the battlefield there. Turn 2 for the Twilightkin. So, after much deliberating and consulting of the rules, I was actually arguing that the rule should have been ruled in a way that would assist my opponent. So it's not one of those game arguments where each player is trying to get the advantage by arguing the rules. I was actually saying that the way that you position the units in a double charge, I was arguing for a solution that would have benefited the Twilightkin potentially. But as it was, they didn't actually fit anyway. But it was based on sharing of the frontage. So my understanding was that you share it as like a percentage of your frontage. So you get it so that you're both trying to get an equal percentage of your frontage against their base. You're not sharing their frontage, if that makes sense. You don't just split down the middle if one unit is much wider than the other. You try and get an equal percentage of each of your units touching the front, which turned out to be the correct way, which almost allowed the Twilightkin to get a double charge here, but it wasn't quite possible with the way they were aligning, so he just decided to go for a single charge, which did end up being hindered as well through that forest with these neophytes. Over here, the triple charge goes into the grotesques after much deliberating, and I think that's probably the right thing to do, much more likely to kill them, I think. So the knights, who of course lost their thunderous charge, so it's no means a guarantee they're going to kill them, and the two, what are they called again? I'll just very subtly look at the sheet. Soulbane on Dread Fiends. So all three of those combined could definitely kill that unit. I don't think I've got it inspired either, because Susan's slightly out of range, and I've got all my other inspiring heroes clumped together in a bundle, which is an interesting strategy. But if they do die, then they can turn to look at me, perhaps, so the golems can't get a flank on them. There's still going to be the potential for surge shenanigans, though, in that department. And Susan and the gargoyles would fancy their chances, actually, at killing these horsemen. Okay, into the middle. So, neophytes over the wall into the Immortal Guard. The Shadow Hulk and the Blade Dancer Regiment into the other Immortal Guard. And this hero here is going to cast Drain Life on something in a moment. And you can see that the two troops of Blade Dancers move up closer as well, ready to support. And look at that. So, the two heroes here did quite a bit of damage, and then the knights just rolled terribly and didn't add much to it at all. So the grotesques survive, which is the nightmare scenario, because that means this one's getting flanked. The knights are almost certainly going to die from grotesque and Susan charge, leaving just this one. So very, very bad news. And then of course the grotesques have got regeneration, and I've got the Ironcaster with heal 5 at the moment. And it's not conditional. I don't just have to heal Hellforged units anymore, so we can actually heal the grotesques. Golems here take a little bit of damage from that horde. You wouldn't expect to do much more than that against defense 6. And these Immortal Guard take a bit of damage as well. They actually take quite a bit, but they're not dead yet. They are inspired there. They've got multiple inspiring sources around them. This one dies. Look at all that damage piled up there. So they are toast. So what's my plan here? Well, the one I was formulating, I want to get everything into combat now and try and kill as much as possible in one go. So, with that in mind, the Hellfane, the perfect target for that would be an infantry unit like this one. I want to try and block in the Shadow Hulk a little bit, so I'm going to use Infernox to attack that. I'm going to send the Immortal Guard and the Half-Breeds into this horde here together, which may be enough to kill that potentially. And I could send this guy in there as well and make it a triple charge with the extra attacks against infantry for the rampage item. Over here, Susan can join in to attack the knights with the grotesques. The golems can flank charge the Soulbane on Dreadfiend, and yeah, it's going to be a bad time for them. The gargoyles can potentially join in with something, so what I actually end up doing, the gargoyles are going to flank charge this unit of infantry, along with the front charge from the Hellfane, who's going to have extra attacks against them. So hopefully that'll be enough to kill, and then the gargoyles are in a good blocking off position here as well then. So I'm willing to sacrifice them to get that unit killed, and then there won't be enough enemy units left to kill significant numbers of my stuff in the following turn. Because over on this side you can see these knights have turned to face inwards, but when I do this triple charge here, it's going to force all my units to slide down a bit, so they're actually only going to be able to go for the Immortal Guard, which doesn't bother me because they're already at death's door, so unless they heal all their wounds, I'm not bothered about that. And down here, as long as I'm not being killed rapidly and this horde can turn around and join in, I'm fine with this stalemate, because as far as the tokens go, I am holding one with the golems here, and the other one is on the Shadow Hulk, and the other one is on these knights. So that's the scenario situation so far. So I'm actually losing 2-1 in the scenario at this point, but it's going alright. Turn 3 for the Abyssal Dwarfs. So, well, you can see that Susan and the grotesques annihilate the horsemen. Soulbane is annihilated by the golems, and leaving just this one, so not a threat at all. The gargoyles and the Hellfane take out the Blade Dancer Regiment. Infernox does a little bit of damage to the Shadow Hulk, but not too much, and the triple charge here did take out the horde. The Immortal Guard got some of their wounds back, and they've turned to make sure that that knight unit is blocked in, those horsemen, so that's the only thing they're going to be able to attack next turn, which is fine by me, because they were already heavily damaged anyway. And over here, 7 wounds on this horde, which is a decent start, so Next turn, if I do about that amount again, then it starts getting into the territory where I could possibly take them off with a nerve roll. So that's how it's looking. It's very healthy over on this flank, obviously, but there's only one objective over there, so I need to turn things around and get them back into play now. And I didn't turn the golems round yet, because while that thing's still alive, I don't entirely want to be facing this way, because they're carrying a loot token, and that's the only thing, theoretically, that's a threat to them at the moment. Everything else is boxed off more severely. So, turn 3 for the Twilight kin. The Horde back into the Golem Horde. The Knights, Horsemen should I say, into the Immortal Guard along with that Blade Dancer troop. Another Blade Dancer troop into Infernox. The Shadow Hulk into the Half-Breeds, which could be decent, could take them out. And the Soulbane just runs away here, doesn't want to get killed, and is still a bit of a threat, so I'm going to have to do something about that as well. The Shadow Hulk does not roll a very high number of attacks. It's random, of course, so only 4 wounds done to the half-breeds, which I'm sure is very disappointing. Doesn't even waver them, and they have Fury now anyway, so that's a situation against something like that that has a slightly below average roll, then they can still get wavered. Not too difficult to waver them, so that Fury might actually come into play more than you think. And here, a bit more damage done, another 4 onto these golems, but not enough to kill them yet. The gargoyles actually get charged by this little critter, this person here, but only wavers them, which is a sign of the gargoyles being upgraded. Their nerve is higher, so it was only able to waver them, which is nice, because they're still a factor in the game now. Infernox takes 4 wounds. And oh no, I was wrong actually. The half-breeds took some damage from Drain Life first, and then the damage from the Shadow Hulk was on top, so they're actually up to 7. So they're still alive though. Immortal Guard, of course, those ones are dead. But I think everything else survived. So that's good, I can start trying to finish off the centre now. Turn 4 for the Abyssal Dwarfs. Susan is the only one that can chase after the Soulbane, so she does so, does 3 damage to it. The golems turn around, they don't want to be flanked by it though, that would be a terrible idea while they're carrying the loot token, so they just turn, so they're still in the front, and the grotesques turn around to face that way as well, so they can get back into the game. The gargoyles regenerate a bit, but they can't do much because of their waver. And here, so, the Shadow Hulk was charged in the flank by the Hellfane and Infernox. So let me go back and show you how that area looked so you've got a clearer picture. So when Infernox withdrew an inch from that combat, you could then see the Shadow Hulk was able to charge it in the flank. The half-breeds withdrew an inch from combat, which meant they were able to charge something over here. And then the Hellfane went into the flank there. So double charge in the flank. Very nice. So the half-breeds, let me see where they ended up after that incident. So I managed to kill that infantry troop there. I think that's what they ended up killing. And the horsemen are still there, facing down with them. So the half-breeds have got all their wounds back, which is nice. I'm really enjoying, because I've always got a decent regeneration salvo in this army, with the half-breeds and the grotesques and Susan, and I usually have Bracky or a half-breed champion or something that's going to have extra regeneration as well. So that combined with the unconditional healing from the Ironcaster, pretty tasty. You can see that the Hellfane has stolen the token from the Shadow Hulk, as you'd expect. And so the Abyssal half-breed champion joined in the charge with the golems on the Horde and took them out. So the extra attacks seriously paid off there, the extra D3. I wasn't rolling like 3 every time or anything, I was just doing average. But an Abyssal half-breed champion with 8 attacks is pretty spicy. You probably, against anything with low defense, or low-ish defense, anything with defense 4 or worse, because of the vicious, for a lot of the time you're going to be wounding on 2s with vicious, which is just a nightmare for any opponent. So plenty of damage coming from him. Golem's pretty reliable. So it's looking bad, and you can see, look at the misery is setting in as the Twigletkin forces are being whittled down, and the battlefield is starting to be cleared here. Not looking good for them. The knights are left. There's a troop there. There's not a whole lot left at all. So turn 4, and we've got a bit of a cavalry off. So the horsemen head straight into the half-breeds. If they don't kill them, they're toast because they've got all this staring into their flank. And the troop there, and the hero, which one is that? That hero is Lees the Soulless. So they've gone into the Hellfane. It's carrying a token, so that could be important, trying to kill that. And then the other hero, the Soulbane, actually found a juicy little spot to attack the Ironcaster. It's going to be hindered, but if he does manage to kill the Ironcaster, there's a potential for a 4-inch overrun into the Hellfane, which could be good, which I didn't consider when setting up the Ironcaster there. So it's unlikely to kill the Ironcaster though. Defense 5, so it's a pretty solid little caster really. 5 damage done on the half-breeds here, not enough to kill them. And the Ironcaster only takes 2 wounds, which is definitely not enough. So not enough accomplished there, so in my turn 5 it should just be a mopping up operation. Golems, half-breed champion and half-breeds into the horsemen, murder them. The Grotesques murder the Soulbane that was attacking the Ironcaster, and everything else killed the infantry troop in the middle. So there are a couple of heroes left, but that's pretty much it. I've got all the tokens, and there you go, with a "what can I do" expression. Not a whole lot. So, very successful game for the Abyssal Dwarves. There were a couple of key moments that could have gone a different way. Obviously, I was not expecting both of these to survive, or either of them, whichever one got charged by a triple charge up there. There's a chance it was going to die, obviously, because that's a decent number of attacks coming in over from those units there. So the Grotesques could have easily died in that spot, but I think my battle plan had already taken that into account, so I don't know whether it would have completely swung the game on its own. There were a couple of other slightly mediocre nerve rolls, and a couple of poor rounds of attack coming from the other side of the table. And I think my rolling was mostly just reliable. I don't think there were any rounds where I just did a billion more damage than you would expect, but I also didn't have any disastrous rolls either. So all in all, very satisfied with that. I like the Hellfane at its new points level, with the extra attacks against certain unit types. Makes it much more viable and much stiffer competition for the Great Obsidian Golem and the Ancient Winged Half-Breed as the Titan options in the Abyssal Dwarf list. Makes it much more compelling. The Half-Breed Champion with the Scythe for those extra attacks as well. Very spicy combo, I like that a lot. Is that going to get it in my list ahead of Bracky in the future? We shall see. Susan did alright, helped out a bit. There wasn't that much for her to chase after in this game though. There weren't any really expensive war machines to go after. There weren't any easily killable but annoying units, which is what she would like to feed on with her 7 attacks. She's not going to usually take out big juicy targets, but what she can really worry things like, for example, ogre shooters maybe. Now maybe she doesn't want to attack ogre shooters because they're something that could actually kill her in retaliation, but they would have to think twice about being charged by her when they don't have a nerve that's obscenely high. And with 7 attacks, if you start looking at like 6 wounds on a unit like that, then you're getting them up there, and it depends if they've got no access to healing or regeneration, they leave themselves a bit open. So yeah, Susan, what's the ideal target for her? A really expensive war machine, some kind of shooty unit. Ogre's probably not the best one to be attacking on your own. They're a bit more beefy than some. Although I think she would be wounding them on 2s though, which is nice. She doesn't have Vicious anymore, so I think previously they would have been a target I would definitely have taken on, but now without Vicious in this edition for Susan, probably wouldn't go after the ogre shooters. But there are plenty of other valuable targets, and then also just throwing in her attacks into whoever needs it with her 360, flying around, charging whatever she likes, then definitely useful still. I can see maybe trying lists without her, but whenever I do that I always miss her though. So what do I think about the other changes? Fury and the Half-Breeds didn't come up, but it's a free upgrade, so why not? The formation with Infernox, I don't know, because the way I use Immortal Guard, I like them to be defense 5. I can see it having a use. Infernox is still not great. Inspiring from the formation does help, but it makes him quite expensive. So I don't know. I don't think he'd be in my optimal list even with that. And some of the other units have had upgrades as well that I haven't tried yet, like Black Souls. So maybe I'll try them next time. Golems, obviously fine. Nothing's been done to them, except the caster that surges them around has had some nice boosts with unconditional inspiring now, and slight changes to the way that the spells are pointed. So you actually have options now rather than just having spells by default, I think. So you can potentially take a cheaper Ironcaster with less spells if you want to focus on a particular role. So that is an option, should you desire it. And overall, I think it worked out pretty well. I think I gave myself enough stuff in the middle to win the fight there. Obviously, the hard-hitting but fragile unit at the back is pretty standard approach. Tougher stuff at the front. Immortal Guard, I don't know. Had they still been defense 5 for this game, it wouldn't have helped against that thing. It would have helped against everything else, but not the Shadow Hulk. So I think I was still using them in the same way I was before, but maybe you have to give them a slightly different role with the reduced defense. They're still tough to kill, even with defense 4 at -17. They're not the easiest things to take off. So maybe just tweak how I use them if I'm going to have them with that formation. I don't know how much play that's going to get. The improved gargoyles did alright actually. They helped out in a combat and they actually survived an attack, which is rare for gargoyles with that extra nerve that they had. So I don't know whether it's necessarily worth the points upgrade. It depends what role you want the gargoyles to have. If you want a bit more versatility from them and the option to actually inflict damage, then it's certainly an upgrade worth considering. It's not that expensive, and it's only viable, I think it's only allowed if you've got Susan in the list as well. So if I tried a list without Susan, I wouldn't be able to use that upgrade. And the flanks, did I have enough stuff? On the left flank, I wasn't even trying to win that flank. I ended up winning it somehow. I think it was because my opponent chose, or was penned in by the terrain so much they couldn't get the double charge in, and then gave up sending the horsemen in there and just went in with the horde against my golems on its own, which is always going to have a tough time cracking that wall of defense 6. So the fact that I was able to not get attacked by both units meant that I probably, on average, was going to win that fight in the end, especially with this guy coming in helping out the half-breed champion. So that flank was a bonus. This flank was a bit of a bonus as well. I was really going all my juice in the middle here, with Susan, Mortal Guard, Half-Breeds, Hellfane, Infernox, champion there, and these golems are kind of skating between the two flank. This is the flank and the centre. I ended up sending them over that way, but that was because the enemy actually came forward. Had they hung back, the golems could have gone this way, potentially. They could have even got the token and then started to fall back, bringing the enemy in, maybe towards difficult terrain. So overall, it was a good game. We're going to have a rematch at some point with different armies. Potentially, Ratkin against Goblins would be an interesting one. Ratkin have got some really dangerous shooting, and I've also been used to shutting down shooting with my Goblins recently with my really fast, massive Troll and Giant advance. I say really fast, but only by speed 6 and 7 standards. So, let's get the episode thumbnail up. Thanks for watching, everybody, and keep your eyes peeled for further battle reports as well as Kings of War Wednesday. And this weekend there may be some Dead Zone action as well, because Dead Zone version 3 did just hit. I've got the rulebook, I've played a game, there may be a battle report, there may be some rulebook analysis to sink your greedy fangs into. More and more content furiously spilling over the edge of this channel into your eyeballs, and the deliciousness has no intention of slowing down. There's just going to be more and more content flying towards you at high speeds. So don't forget to subscribe, like the video, check out all the links in the description, the various social media shenanigans going on down there. And don't forget to throw money at me as well to keep this channel afloat during these dark, turbulent times, so I can act as a beacon to guide you away from the rocks of hobby misery towards the promised land of hobby fulfillment and joy, obviously. And check out Death by Dragons, Kings of War battle reports, and other Kings of War content as well, if you can't get enough of this game system. And obviously I can't do a battle report every single day, so you will need other content creators occasionally, I suppose, even if they are inferior channels. Feel free to check them out. And for the comments, let me know what you think of these two armies matched up against each other, whether you had any thoughts on the strategies employed. I think the fact that we were just testing out certain rules and new units meant that at the start there was an element of I'm going to push things forward and see what happens, but then once the game's underway it very quickly turns into, okay, what can I get in at this angle? Can I find this flank? So the overall grand strategy may not have been too advanced, really, because, like I said, we were testing out certain units and the new rules, but in the end it was more like a chess match. Well, maybe not that, but it was getting that way. Okay, all that remains to be said now, folks, is good night out there, whatever you are.